I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing all this out like some kind of confession, but here we are. My name's Dave, and I've been with my wife, Jessica, for about 5 years now. When we got married, I thought I'd found the one. She was smart, funny, a bit bitchy sometimes, but in that way that kinda made her more interesting. We had this routine, a pretty good life, or so I believed. Tell me she was working late, going out with friends, doing her thing. I never really questioned it. I was busy with my job, trying to build a future, and she seemed to be right there with me, or so I thought. But then little things started to change. She'd come home later than usual, always with some vague excuse about client dinners or a new project at work. At first, I thought she was just stressed, or maybe she was trying to get ahead. But her phone started ringing in the middle of the night, and she'd get weird about her messages, sometimes deleting texts without even reading them in front of me. She'd brush off my questions with that snippy attitude of hers, saying I was paranoid or insecure. Honestly, I didn't want to believe anything was wrong, but deep down, I felt a gnawing suspicion that I was missing something. Then last week, everything broke open. I was at home just doing my usual Sunday thing when I decided to check our joint bank account because I noticed a few unusual charges. Among them were hotel bills, gas station receipts, and some payments to a hospital. None of it made sense at first. I thought maybe she was sick or something, but then I came across her hospital bill. That's when everything hit me like a ton of bricks. The bill was in her name, yes, but it listed a delivery date, and the name of the baby's father was Mark, her boss. I couldn't believe it. I thought I was going crazy, but there it was, staring right back at me. Proof that she's been sleeping with her boss during her business trips and probably more than that. I felt this cold wave rush over me. I mean, how could she do this? How could she lie to my face for years, pretend everything was fine? And the worst part, she lied about staying late at the office. She lied about everything because she was with him. Mark, her boss, a guy I always thought was a decent enough dude until I saw this. It's like my whole life just crumbled in that moment. I didn't sleep that night, just sat there staring at the ceiling, trying to process what I'd found. I kept asking myself, is this real? Did she really cheat on me with Mark? Did she get pregnant by him? How long has this been going on? The questions kept piling up, but the one thing I knew for sure was that nothing was ever going to be the same again. The next morning, I couldn't even pretend to be normal. I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck, heart pounding, stomach twisted, and a head full of chaos. I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. I had to confront her, face whatever this was head on. I got up, went straight to her phone, and started digging through her messages. My hands were shaking, but I had to see the truth for myself. And what I found, it was worse than I imagined. Texts, photos, even voice messages. She and Mark had been talking dirty, planning trips, sharing photos of them together, and even talking about the new baby like it was some kind of secret prize they'd won. I felt a rage building inside me. It was like I was watching some sick soap opera, except it was real and I was the fool who hadn't seen it coming. I confronted her that evening. I knew I had to. I found her in the kitchen, casually scrolling through her phone as if nothing was wrong. I told her I knew everything, showed her the hospital bill, laid it all out in front of her, her face. It was a mix of shock, annoyance, and that smug bitchiness she always had when she thought she was winning. She looked at me like I was some kind of idiot, like I was supposed to just accept it and move on. "Oh, Dave," she said, rolling her eyes. "You're overreacting. It's not what you think. That's just work. Mark's just a friend. The hospital bill, that's none of your business. I was sick and I needed treatment. I didn't cheat on you. You're just insecure and jealous like always." She threw out those words with that irritating smirk, acting like I was the crazy one, but I knew better. I looked her in the eyes and told her I wasn't stupid, that I saw the messages, the photos, everything. Her excuse. She said she was tired of my paranoia, that I didn't trust her, and that I was just jealous because Mark was successful and she was bored with our life. She's always been good at lying, but this time her words rang hollow. I felt my blood boil. The betrayal wasn't just about the cheating, it was about the way she dismissed me like I was nothing. I never felt so stupid in my life. How long had this been going on? How many times had she lied to my face? I couldn't even look at her the same way anymore. That night I stayed up, contemplating everything. I thought about her callousness, her lies, her selfishness. And honestly, I was hurt, but deep down I was furious. Furious for being played, for being made to feel like I was crazy, and most of all, for losing the person I thought was my partner in this life. I realized then that I couldn't just sweep this under the rug. I had to decide what to do next, whether to forgive her and try to fix this mess, or to just cut my losses and walk away. The next few days were like living in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Every time I tried to think straight, her face would pop up in my head. Her smirk, her dismissiveness, how she looked at me like I was some kind of obstacle she needed to get rid of. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I let her get away with lying to me for so long. But honestly, I knew deep down I was done trying to understand her excuses. There was no explaining away that kind of betrayal. No matter how much she tried to spin it, I knew the truth. She'd been cheating on me with Mark, getting pregnant from her boss, all while pretending she was just working late. I decided I had to confront her again, this time in a way that I hoped would force her to come clean once and for all. I told her I needed to talk face to face, no more bullshit. She rolled her eyes again, that same bitchy smirk on her face as if she thought she could just talk her way out of it, but I wasn't having it. I told her I knew everything, the affair, the pregnancy, the lies. I wanted her to admit it to see how it felt to be exposed. Her reaction. She scoffed, said I was overreacting, and that I was just jealous because Mark was better than me in some way. Typical Jessica, always pulling the victim card whenever she got caught. She started crying then, but it wasn't the kind of genuine tears you'd think meant she was sorry. It was more like manipulation, trying to make me feel guilty or like I was the villain. She looked at me with those eyes, part defiant, part fake remorse, and said she didn't mean to hurt me, that it was just a mistake, that she loved me and that she was confused. Yeah, the classic "I'm sorry I got caught" routine, but I wasn't buying it. I looked at her and saw her for what she was, a selfish, lying woman who had no problem betraying her vows and her own family for some thrill, some bullshit affair with her boss. That moment hit me hard. I realized I was standing there, hurt, angry, betrayed, and I knew I had a choice. I could try to forgive her, I could pretend this was just a bad phase, or I could finally accept that she was no longer the woman I thought I married. The pain was sharp, but so was the clarity. I knew I couldn't keep living in denial. I told her I needed some time to process everything, that I wasn't sure what would happen next. She threw a tantrum, cried even more, begged me not to leave her, but honestly I didn't care. I just wanted her to leave me alone so I could start figuring out what my life was going to look like from here. That night, I stayed awake again, staring at the ceiling, trying to piece together everything I'd found out. My mind kept racing. How she lied, how she cheated, how she got pregnant by Mark. It was like I was living someone else's life. I felt numb, but underneath that numbness was the kind of cold rage that's hard to describe. I knew things were going to change big time, and I also knew I was done being the fool. I didn't know exactly what I'd do next, but I knew I'd never be the same again after all this. The days that followed were some of the worst of my life. I felt like I was walking around in a fog, every moment weighed down by the betrayal. I kept replaying everything, her words, her lies, her fake tears, and trying to figure out what to do. The thing that hurt the most was feeling so completely blindsided. I had trusted her for 5 years, invested in this life we built together, and she just threw it all away for some affair with her boss Mark. I kept asking myself, how could she do this? How could she lie to my face, pretend she loved me, and then go sleep with someone else, get pregnant, and act like it was nothing? One thing I knew for sure was that I couldn't just stay passive. I had to act. I started gathering evidence, screenshots of her messages, photos she'd sent Mark, the hospital bill, stuff I didn't want to look at but knew I had to have if I wanted to do this right. I also decided I needed to talk to Mark face to face, get some answers from him. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Mark was supposed to be a professional, a respected guy, but he'd knocked up my wife. That's some level of low I wasn't prepared for. I wanted answers, and I wanted to make sure he knew I wasn't playing around. So I arranged to meet him. I told him I needed to talk about Jessica, and surprisingly, he agreed. When we finally met, I didn't hold back. I told him exactly what I knew about the affair, the pregnancy, the lies, and I saw him flinch just a little. He tried to spin some bullshit about being sorry and how Jessica was confused, that he never meant for it to go this far. But I cut him off. I told him I didn't want his apologies. I wanted to know what he was going to do about it. Mark looked me in the eyes and said he wanted to meet Jessica to sort things out. That made me even angrier. This guy was trying to play the innocent, like I was supposed to accept his apology and move on. No way. Meanwhile, Jessica kept calling, texting, trying to get me to talk, to work things out. I didn't answer her at first. Honestly, I felt numb. How had I let it get this bad? How could she be so cold, so manipulative? I kept wondering if I was overreacting, if maybe I was just too jealous, too insecure. But then I remembered the hospital bill, the photos, the countless lies. No, this was real. This was her betrayal, plain and simple. I knew I had to make a choice: stay and try to fix this mess, or walk away and start over. That night, I finally sat down and thought about everything. I realized I was tired of feeling hurt, tired of being betrayed, tired of feeling like I'd lost my trust in someone I loved. I decided I wasn't going to chase her anymore. I sent her a message telling her I needed space, that I was done pretending everything was okay. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done, but I knew I had to take control. I wasn't going to be the fool any longer. The betrayal had cut too deep, and I was finally ready to face the truth, that my marriage was over and I needed to figure out what came next. The days turned into a blur of silence and reflection. I avoided her calls and texts, not because I didn't care, but because I needed clarity. I couldn't keep living under the weight of her lies. Every time I thought about everything she did, sleeping with Mark, getting pregnant, lying about her whereabouts, it felt like a punch in the gut. But honestly, what hurt even more was the way she acted, like she was the victim now, like I was some jealous psycho for catching her cheating. She kept insisting she loved me, that it was just a mistake, but I couldn't buy it anymore. Her words just sounded hollow, like she was trying to manipulate her way out of trouble again. I finally decided I needed to do something drastic. I reached out to a lawyer, got some advice on how to handle things legally if I decided to go that route. I also wanted to talk to a counselor, not for us but for myself. I needed someone to help me process this mess, to help me understand how I got here and how I was supposed to move forward. Sitting there in that office, I realized I was broken, heart, mind, everything. But I also knew I had to be strong. No matter how much it hurt, I had to take control of my life again. I couldn't let her or Mark win this, whatever this was. One night, she finally showed up at my place looking all contrite and teary-eyed. I wasn't surprised. Honestly, I'd expected her to come crawling back, begging for forgiveness or some bullshit like that. But I was done. I told her I wasn't going to be her backup plan anymore, that I needed to figure out what I wanted, whether that was to forgive her or to walk away for good. She kept crying, saying she was sorry, saying she loved me, that she never meant to hurt me. But I looked at her and saw right through it. What she did was unforgivable. I told her she could stay or go, but I wasn't making any promises. That night, I slept alone for the first time in a long time. I kept thinking about everything: the lies, the betrayal, the fact that I'd been played for a fool. I realized I'd never feel the same about her again, not after what she did. But I also understood something important. I had to start rebuilding myself. I had to learn how to trust again, not just her, but people in general. The pain was real, but it was also a wake-up call. I never thought I'd have to say this, but I finally saw that I needed to prioritize myself, my feelings, and my future. Whatever came next, I knew I'd be okay. I had to be. Looking back now, I realized that everything I went through was a brutal lesson in trust and betrayal. It's strange how life throws these curveballs when you're least prepared. I thought I knew Jessica, thought I knew us, how we worked, how we loved. But it turns out I was just fooling myself. The woman I married, the woman I thought I was building a life with, was actually someone else entirely. Cheating, lying, getting pregnant by her boss, all of it shattered that illusion. I felt like a fool, a sucker who'd blindly trusted someone who didn't deserve it. But even through that pain, I started to see things a little differently. I learned that I'd been giving too much of myself, too much trust, to someone who clearly didn't value it. I learned that sometimes love isn't enough to hold things together when people are making selfish choices. And I learned that the only person I can truly rely on is myself. I've come to accept that I can't change what she did, but I can control how I respond. I can choose to let this ruin me, or I can pick up the pieces and rebuild, stronger, wiser, more careful with whom I let into my life. Now I'm focusing on healing. I've started therapy, reconnected with friends, and I'm slowly figuring out what I want from here. Not everything is perfect, and I know it's going to be a long road, but it's mine now. I've learned to listen to my gut more, to trust myself first, before blindly trusting others. And I've realized that sometimes the best revenge is simply walking away, showing that I'm better off without the lies and betrayal. My advice to anyone in a similar situation: don't ignore the signs, no matter how uncomfortable they are. Trust your instincts and don't be afraid to face the hard truths. If someone betrays you once, they'll do it again unless they truly change. And most importantly, don't stay in a toxic situation just out of habit or fear. Your happiness and sanity are worth more than any relationship that's built on lies. I lost a lot, but I gained clarity, and that's worth more than gold. Now I'm ready to move on, to find my peace, and to rebuild what I thought I'd lost: myself.